John, aren't you going to take a break today? I wanted to, actually. I have two teaching videos that I usually review them, add all the notes. So I got like a chapter of Acts that still has to be posted. Maybe I did that about a week ago, and also a chapter of Kings. And the normal system I was working on was I would teach on like a Tuesday, just by myself, wherever I was teaching that chapter, Thursday, and I do plan on continuing to do that. This past Sunday, where I also teach at my daughter's, but they were at Mudfest. You know what came? I just finished. I got up at about 3 today, and just what time is it? 8:30. I didn't do intercession that whole time, meaning just continual prayer, but I was worshiping, praising, quoting scripture, and that's just a regular routine. You know, I'm surprised I only got unfriended like by one person. I don't know who it is. I don't look. You know, I had a guy cut a tree here. The people I worked for many years, I had a big tree here. Oh, it was Rick and his brother. I forget the name. They were nice. Oh, Mason, and Frankie and Rick Mason. Frankie, you've seen on some videos. Frankie's nice. I haven't seen him in a while. But when I was doing those meetings at 918 West Lakeside, Bible studies, I liked it because, look, Danny Gill used to be in those meetings. But I noticed Rick, or Mason, he'd bring his Bible out. They always staying at the halfway house. So look, for the nice audience, that little halfway house, sort of like Angel helps people that are on the streets, but it's actually Tommy Nichols' apartments, which is fun. And he lets Angel use one of the trailers they try to fix up. I even donated like a gallon of paint once, and I was low on money because I was going to go to a trip. And I always am right on I don't have a lot of money. Scripture that says, a little that the righteous has is more than the riches of many wicked. Now, that's why it came to my mind. But one night, the guys would argue there or whatever. And I was there doing one of my meetings, and Rick Mason, I call him Mason, but he came out, and then Angel had an argument. They said, he's not going to come out and be in the meeting, he'll be in the back of the trailer. But in the little argument, whatever argument she was having, I'm sure she didn't realize what she was saying. But this is what came out of Angel's mouth. Dear Angel, this is just, God will use you in one example. Now, Angel knows Tommy Nichols, and she used to call Tommy for various of this, and not in, just regular things. I'm going to, something happen or whatever. It's the first thing that came out of Angel's mouth. Arguing with Rick. She said, I'll call Tommy or the cops right now, and I'll tell them that you exposed yourself to my minor child. She said that. Now, she didn't do that. But look, Rick, he said to me, and look, I almost got into it with Rick about the tree. But Rick said to me, John, you heard that, you're a witness, right? I said, yeah, I did. Because she said, I'll do a false accusation. Rick cut my tree. There was a big tree here. Look, he did a good job. He cut it for I think I paid him $100, maybe $150. But it was a big tree. And he was a very talented tree cutter, but had a meth problem or crack, I think meth. So he could. And then the big chunks of the tree, he was supposed to come and finish the job. I finished it, and I wound up paying him the rest of the money. I told that story a few years ago. I didn't have to pay him because he never came back to finish. I paid him like half. But then I finished paying him. I felt the Lord said pay him because it was worth it. And he tithed. I think he gave me $10 back or whatever. Actually did that. Had upbringing in the Church of Christ background. But then like a week later they came by after I paid him. He must have used the money because there were two older Mexican guys that had Rick working with them. He was very talented. If it wasn't for the drug addiction, he could have made a lot of money just doing that. I saw how he knew what to do. And then they rang my bell. I was reading the Bible. Oh, Rick's at the door. What's up? The two Mexican guys said, we're here to finish moving all the stumps and cutting the rest of them, and they wanted to get in the gate. It was like 7 o'clock at night. I said, oh, no, don't worry about it. I said, I finished it. Rick never told those guys, I'm sure he had to split the money. He never told them, well, John actually paid me. He might not have remembered it. But either way, I blew my stack. I cursed at those guys because I said, Rick and the two other guys were out. So I cursed and yelled. I said, I paid you. Oh, we're sorry, sir. Okay. That just came to my mind. That's why I share it. I share it to let you see that, and I'm not, look, when I look at some of these things, the statistics, I was actually thinking right at the end of my prayer, because I looked at Patriot Daniel, the statistics of that. Why in Scripture, look, don't take lightly that chapter of Genesis about Potiphar's wife. It's interesting because God gives you a history in Scripture. There are not a whole lot of accusations of rape in Scripture. You have crimes committed in Scripture, but not a whole lot of actual biblical, historical stories. And the one that you do have, which is famous, which is Joseph and Potiphar's wife, shows you that part of the sinfulness of humanity, besides actual people that go out and commit rape. But on the other side of the scale, what is the majority? A lot of women don't go out and commit rape, okay? You do have stories of school teachers, lady teachers, that wound up sleeping with their students, which was illegal, and some did time, a couple famous cases. For the most part, sinfulness. This is why I'm saying people don't recognize the statistics on false accusation of child molestation by ex-wives and all. I forget. I could link it. I'll try and find it. You just got to Google it, I'm sure. But it's like very high. I don't know, like 40-something%. You say, well, how could it be that high? I'm just giving you an example. That silly example of Angel. Why would that be, like, out of anger? It's not, I'll go get a gun and shoot you, Rick, or I'll call the cops and say you expose myself to my minor child. And I knew the kids because they were there. And even Angel's a good lady. I don't say this to denigrate Angel. It's an example to show that that's also something that quickly comes out, like in that case. Now, I did read Malachi. I wasn't going to I have a couple teaching videos, but I try to, sometimes it says, behold, I show you a new thing, shall you know it. Sometimes your routines will change, if they change permanently, but it is interesting, and I finished going through Zechariah and just reading through the regular chapters. But I read Malachi 1 and 2, but I noticed it interesting. Last night happened to be chapter 2 came up. It's judgment on the priests. Also the priests, like I talked before, they played a role in the Old Testament economy of Israel. They were also, you didn't have civilian police, okay, in Israel, in the Old Testament. The police you see, the law enforcement you see at the time of Jesus and all the Roman authorities, but the priests also played a role because they were the receivers of the law, that's the actual commandments of God, and so they regulated. But there's a judgment. I won't read the whole chapter, but there's a judgment on the leadership. Now look, I didn't pick this chapter, this came up. It says, ye say, wherefore hath the Lord been witness against? The judgment is, they broke their covenant with their wives. I found that interesting. I didn't come up with that. It says, how did we deal treacherously? It says, with the wife of your covenant. You did not make one the residue. Read the last few verses. For the Lord God of Israel saith he hates putting away. Look, I just recently taught that. I don't even know if I posted it, but it's going to be one of the chapters in Mark's Gospel. saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that you don't deal treacherously. I just found there's other rebukes for the people of God, but that's one, and we were hitting on that in leadership. Look, there's many divorced people, and I understand all this, okay? But I just found it interesting. Maybe I was supposed to hit a little bit more on that. It says, the leadership dealt treacherously. The leadership. Sometimes, older people go through midlife crisis or whatever. But God said, particularly to the priest or to the leadership in that chapter, it said there's bad stuff going on among you. I've recounted a lot of the cases. We in society, we put less of trust me, a lot of those things you hear me speak about, these things happen. And I notice sometimes people got used to these things happening. In society, we do practice bias and we don't understand it. Even in the most, again, today they're remembering the people that were killed in Orlando at the gay nightclub in Orlando, the Pulse nightclub. I think it's the 1 year, not anniversary, but remembering. It's okay to remember. There were 40-something people killed maybe 2 weeks ago in a terror attack. It was about 40-something. You say, are you referring to the London? You got the numbers wrong. No, I'm not. I believe it was the bombing in Afghanistan. ISIS or the Taliban, ISIS probably bombed something, and that was such a minor story. And you had another one in the last few weeks in Iraq as well. Many killed. Do you know when there are bombings in Paris, we tell those stories in the media, we show, which is okay. But when maybe there was a bunch of Muslims that were killed by a terrorist in another country, barely had a story. They didn't show you the lives of those children or ladies that were killed, and there were more. But yet we will go, and I'm not criticizing those that are remembering the Pulse nightclub victims and showing the stories, but it shows, why do we have that type of bias in society? If somebody was, if George Bush or President Obama or President Trump, if his children were visiting a particular area of the world or whatever, and then we knew accidentally we were going to target with the drone somewhere, some Muslim country or whatever. Of course, if we knew that the president and his children were in the vicinity, that would be a no-go. Why? Well, you wouldn't want to kill an innocent child. Yet we take that statistic into account when we carry out certain drone raids. Meaning, we've had some tragedies like the bombing of a wedding, killed just everybody at the wedding. But we also take the statistic into account just in general. Meaning, if we're going to do a particular raid, Afghanistan, somewhere, there's a percentage of civilians before we do the raid. Obama had a high standard, like some in the military criticized, but there's a percentage of civilian deaths of both women and children that we would go ahead with that drone raid or drone bombing. Not targeting the kids, but understanding, yes, some will die, but if it was someone that we deemed of greater value, we would say, abort that mission. But why do we deem some of greater value? Why do we... Is a judgment like that a righteous judgment? Maybe some of you never even thought of that. So when you're dealing with maybe a false, putting someone in jail for 2 years or because you were, very upset about the problem dealing with and say, well, that was wrong, we told him not to do it. But imagine if I took Chief Markle and held him for 2 years. That would be like, that's a kidnapping. But we don't deem that on the less in society. Okay? I won't go long because this ain't a teaching one. I guess we'll do a little talking about that. I'll look for a statistic like that. But I just wanted you to see, even from some of the examples, what we see in Scripture, we don't see a lot of, rape cases. There's some cases of things that happen, some famous ones in Scripture. But you see one of the most famous stories in Scripture, and it shows that part of the iniquity, primarily on with women, part of the iniquity is I know how I can get you, and it might not be I will beat you, because normally women are weaker. Normally, okay, they're not as strong as a male. But part of the wickedness on the side of men is actual rape. That is a terrible crime that does take place. But on the side of women, from Scripture, we see they quickly know in a moment of anger, if I'm mad at Rick Mason or whatever, they quickly know, or the ex-husband. That's why I said the rates are so high. That's why I said when you have, like the Kingsville Carpenter case, when you have a scenario where it didn't seem like that man cooked up that scenario, because just from the initial arrestal, and then the scenario seems to show what would be the motivation for a false accusation of rape. And in Scripture it tells us, if you don't have sex with Potiphar's wife, that quickly comes out. Quickly comes out, so that wasn't like a measured response. Very quick response. In that case, it's I'll call the cops and tell them that you expose yourself to my young minor child, which is a severe accusation to make. But that comes out right away. It wasn't planned. And for my sweet friend Angel, I remembered that story. I don't know if you remember it. You never made that complaint. But that was an example that God can use, because we're all humans, okay? So that'll be the first one. And Malachi was strong on some of the stuff I hit on. Leadership, you've broken the covenant with the wife of your youth. Those were things that I was hitting on, kind of bringing up, unplanned, and the chapter was actually that, all right?